if you're talking about stories, I mean, I just turned 74 years old here on the 17th. And, I've been in music all my life. And I started at a very, very young age. My grandfather started teaching me how to play banjo at the age of 3 years old. And I've got pictures of it. He was a professional musician that had been in and out of Nashville, played on the road with several people, quite a few people that you would recognize. And he also had his own band, and he played especially on this one television show that was in Jacksonville, Florida, where I grew up, along with the rest of the Skynyrd guys and the Blackfoot guys and stuff. But when he would be home, he would go on this TV show. And the TV show is called The Toby Dowdy Show. And it was a country music based, entertainment show. And he went to Toby one day and he said, "Hey, look, I've worked up some songs with my grandson on the banjo, and I'd like to bring him on the show to play it for you." And Toby was like, "Well, how old is your grandson?" He goes, "3." He went, "3." And he says, "And you worked up songs?" My granddad said, "Yeah." Well, he brought me on the show. We did a song together. And the I guess fan mail, cards and letters or whatever that loved the show or whatever, just it increased. Talking about the little guy, the little boy Ricky who played the banjo with his granddaddy. And from that point on, I was on the show for like 5 years. And that was the beginning, of my, I guess you should say, my whole professional music career. What's interesting is I picked up playing guitar at 5 and then playing drums at 8. And little did I know the drums would, come into play later on. I played in my granddaddy's band on drums. And then, later on in the early 70s, for about 2.5 years, I became the drummer of Lynyrd Skynyrd in the formidable years of that band. We grew up in the west side of Jacksonville. And believe it or not, my granddaddy had, he used to hold square dances and gatherings, big, like shows in Jacksonville. And Ronnie and Donnie's dad and mom, Lacey and his wife, well, we were all in the same neighborhood in the west side of Jacksonville. But then when we had our teen bands and stuff playing in these teen clubs all over Jacksonville, we intermingled together. We would run into each other. And it was kind of like we knew each other since our teenage years. And I ended up, here it was. I'm just had maybe getting ready to turn 21 or whatever. And I was already in the band Blackfoot in 69 into 70. And I had gotten really discouraged with the way things were going. And so I happened to have Alan Collins's phone number. And I gave Alan Collins a call. And I said, "Hey, look, Alan's Rickey Medlocke." He goes, "Hey, man, how are you?" I said, "Fine." And he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm really unhappy in the situation that I'm in. I'm up in New Jersey and things are not going well. And I'm kind of discouraged at the whole thing. And I'd like to come back home to Jacksonville. And I'd like to know if you guys needed a crew guy, somebody to set the equipment up or drive the truck or whatever." And he goes, "You still play drums?" And I said, yeah. He goes, "You need to call Ronnie." So he gave me Ronnie's number. I called up Ronnie. Ronnie answered. And I said, "Hey, Ronnie, this is Rickey Medlocke." He goes, "Hey, how are you?" I said, "Well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little discouraged right now with the way things are going with myself." And I just talked to Alan, and Alan asked me, did I play drums? Because I want to come back home to Jacksonville. And he told me to call you. He goes, "So you still play drums?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, interesting. He goes, well, Bob Burns, that was the first drummer. He said, he's leaving us. And we are due to be in the studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama in 2 weeks and to start our first record. And he says, what do you think? You want the job? I said, I'll take it. And so up in New Jersey, I went about brushing up on some licks and chops on the drums and sold off some equipment and kept my guitars. And they sent me a ticket and I flew down to Jacksonville. And right when I landed, we went by my parents' home where my granddaddy Shorty was, sitting on the porch playing the blues. And Ronnie, Gary, and Alan come up there and sat with him while I dropped all my stuff off. And there was a great relationship that started, you know, between those guys and my dad and my mom. And you know what? You know, Ronnie took my old man as one of the basic inspirations for Curtis Lowe. And he also dedicated the Nothing Fancy record and a song called Made in the Shade. And the reason why Made in the Shade was put on there and dedicated to my old man, because my old man used to tell all of us guys, hey, look, you guys keep going the way you're going. One of these days, you're going to have it made in the shade. So that was that's where that came from. First of all, when I was on the road with Skynyrd, it was when we went to Muscle Shoals, when we were going back and forth. We did something so in traveling was totally against the law. But we had a great big box truck, huge one, probably maybe a 20-footer, 18, 20-footer. We'd stack all the gear in the front, and then we'd put all the mattresses in the back. And we would sleep in the back with kind of the door up. Well, I mean, all that gear could have come down on top of us while we're traveling. And the crew guys would be up front driving, and we'd be back there, you know, talking to each other and laughing and carrying on. Man, it was just a togetherness that was just really great. You know, I think about that, and I think about those years, and some of the best. When you're doing it at the time, you're going, oh man, this is just like, you know, this is terrible. But then after all these years, man, I look back on it, and it was some of the best times that we probably ever had in our life, you know. And I think about all these things growing up with those guys, and then leaving them for a while, and then being back with them now since, you know, 96. So collectively, I've been with them over 30 years. And in that 30 years, there's one particular story that's so interesting, and everybody already knows about the plane disaster. And it's really interesting. We were in London, and this story has always stuck with me. And it's really, to me, it's cool. But we're in London, and we had just played, and it's kind of on the anniversary of that day. And you know, I had promised Gary when I got in the band that I would stay with the band until the last note in Freebird was played. Well, years, you know, back in 77, I had taken my grandfather over to their studio to just see Ronnie. He wanted to see Ronnie. Ronnie wanted to see him, and I took him over. Well, we go over there, and they said hello to each other, and we listened to one of the songs off the Street Survivors record, which was That Smell. And as we were leaving, Ronnie gave my old man a hug and, you know, told my dad, Shorty, it was great to see you again. And my dad said, you too, Ronnie. I just, you know, love you guys. And so Ronnie looked at me and he says, hey, look, he goes, Rickey, he goes, what are you doing for the next, you know, week? And I said, you know, nothing really. I'm not playing with the band. We got no bookings or anything. And he says, hey, won't you come ride with us? You know, we got our own plane and so forth and so on. Well, thought it was a good idea. But 2 days before you know, 2 days before they left, we ended up getting gigs. Blackfoot did. And I couldn't go. So what happened was that they left Greenville, South Carolina that day as we were pulling into Columbia, South Carolina. Fast forward to that night in London on the anniversary of the plane crash, you know. And I got on the bus, and there's over there, they got these double-decker buses, and you get up front, and they've got a great observation part up there with a big window and everything. And Gary and Dale were sitting up there, his wife Dale, background singer. We're sitting up there, and I sat down next to Gary, and he reaches over and slaps me on the arm. And he goes, where were you? And I said, what do you mean, where was I? He goes, you know what I'm talking about, on that day. And I went, oh. I said, well, Gary, you guys were leaving Greenville as we were pulling into Columbia, South Carolina. And I said, you know, I always thought, man, if I had been there at that time, maybe I could have said something or made a difference, you know, like maybe other people tried to. And he said, no, Ricky. He goes, Gary said, no, Ricky. He said, it wasn't meant for you to be there then. It's meant for you to be here now. And so here I am, back with the guys, 28 years now. And I'm still here. And we lost Gary, you know, as you know, we lost Gary last year, almost a year now. And I'm still playing Freebird. And I'm still promising him that I'll be here till the last note in Freebird is played. You know, Johnny Van Zant, you know, he was,
of course, yeah.
He was like, you know, at the time, I think he was in high school, maybe still or whatever. And, you know, he was going to go. He was going to go and ride with him. But I think the way it goes is his parents wouldn't let him go because he had school. And so he didn't go. It's a weird, it's still just, it's interesting the way it strikes me still today. It's just a very weird twist of fate. And, but like Gary said, you know, neither Johnny or I, we weren't supposed to be there then. We were supposed to be here now. And carrying on this legacy that we're very, very proud of. We honor it, you know, we respect it. And the biggest thing we respect is the people that went before us, and especially the music. Those songs will be here a lot longer after I'm gone, that's for sure. And for people to enjoy. I'll tell you another little interesting thing that's great, man. We have been booked on a show in Florida at the time of Gary's passing, and we couldn't get out of it. So we went ahead with the show, and it was tough. I mean, that was a tough one for me and Johnny. And so what was really interesting is the management of the band came backstage right before we went on and brought this huge plaque from Spotify. And it was to certify, and I looked at the numbers, and it didn't quite register with me till I looked at the zeros. But it was to certify 1 billion streams of Sweet Home Alabama. And I get to thinking about that, 1 billion. That's something to be said for the music. And really the music is the important part. When Gary passed, the outcry from fans was like the biggest part of them were saying, you know, don't let this be the end of it. And so we worked it out the way we had to work it out as far as the business goes. We worked it out, and here's Johnny and I and the rest of the band. Here we are. We started it in last year, and here we are this year. And we don't plan on calling a halt to it till whenever.
you know? And my equation is, look, if the Rolling Stones can do it, we can do it. My family here, my lovely lady and her family, they know an incredible songwriter, Don Nix. Don Nix has been a personal friend of theirs. He's from here in Memphis. He was in Muscle Shoals quite a lot. And he wrote the song Going Down that multitudes of people have recorded. Well, he was in Muscle Shoals when we first got there. And when we got there, we all got out and we were congregated in the parking lot. And we didn't know exactly what to do because Jimmy and David, Jimmy Johnson, David Hood hadn't told us exactly. But Don Nix remembers looking out the back door of 3614 and seeing all these long-haired guys standing out there, you know, and he said what was funny to him, he said everywhere Ronnie would move, we would move like a covey of quail right along with him. He would move, we would move. He would move again, we would move again. And I got to tell you, some of the best experiences we learned from the Muscle Shoals guys. We learned the art of recording. They actually taught us a lot. I mean, you all of a sudden you learn that playing live and recording are two different things. And all that early recording in Muscle Shoals, which came out many years later after the plane disaster, called Lynyrd Skynyrd's First and Last album. And then there went on to be a Muscle Shoals collection. Well, all of that stuff I got to play. I played drums on. I sang lead on some stuff. I played guitar on some stuff, sang background vocals. And you know what? The stuff that we got from those guys has lasted us, you know, a lifetime. I mean, that's where we cut our chops and learned our recording ability and the whole bit. And you know what? It was really, really, really cool. It really was. Here's the thing. I have a song out called "Never Run Out of Road." I've got native blood within me, and a large part of me it is native. There's been a thing going on for many, many years called it's under the MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, and that's a movement that's been going on many years. And there's a lot of organizations, a lot of charitable organizations that donate to the cause to see it come to an end. It's been going on for decades. You know, not a lot of people ever really realized it, and it's never been really heavily talked about on any news shows or anything like that. And so what we did, there's a song called Never Run Out of Road. And I got this, you know, this guitar player friend of mine, Mark Warple, that played with me in some of the formidable years of Blackfoot before I went back with Lynyrd Skynyrd. And Mark and I called him up one day and I said, hey, you know what? When Skynyrd's not touring, I'd like to do something music, you know, with music and maybe a band or whatever. And I said, what if, you know, I inserted myself in your band, because he has a band up in Minnesota. What if I inserted myself and we worked up a set and maybe played a couple of gigs here and there when Skynyrd's off, because I love to be busy. Ask my gal, she'll tell you, I love to be busy. And the point is that I wanted it to, the song, whatever we ended up doing recording wise, I wanted it to do something, mean something, you know? Well, we, through a series of events, got together with Scott, the guy that does Rock the Calls Records. And it's distributed through Sony, Orchard Sony. And he came in and he said, look, the artists that we do, donates to certain charitable funds. And I was like, wow, this is perfect. So we did this song, and I got in touch with a friend of mine when I knew we were going to be donating to different, causes. I got in touch with this really good friend of mine, like a brother. He is a brother. His name is Gil Birmingham, and people will recognize him from Yellowstone, especially. He's the tribal chairman of the Indian Nation there, and he's been in countless movies. He was the father of the Pack of Wolves for all the Twilight series, and he's been around for quite a few years. Anyway, I got a hold of him and I said, you guys did an episode, I think it was in the third season of Yellowstone. I said, you did something for, the MMIW. He said, yeah, we did. And I said, well, do you know any charitable organizations? Because I got this new song and we're going to be donating part of the proceeds to it. Do you have anybody in mind? He says, let me call Taylor Sheridan, and let me find out, he donated to one of these charitable organizations. Let me call and find out, because he would have, investigated whoever they are. He would have done that, So he calls me back not too long after that and said, Taylor donated to, it's called the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. And so we set it up. That's what we did. We're donating to that. Another one is a very personal thing to me. They gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award not too many years ago, and it's called the Dream Catchers Charitable Fund. Donate to that, and to Save the Wolves, donating to that. And so I'm really into this, this thing for the Indigenous women. It's gone on far too long. It doesn't get the attention. And just trying to bring awareness to a very, very serious problem.